10 years ago, he changed the face of Halloween. Tonight, he's back. This is your look at the new Trick or Treat Studios Halloween 4 The Return of Michael Myers 1/6 scale Michael Myers figure. Trick or Treat Studios and Trancas International Films are proud to present, and for the first time ever, the official Halloween 4 The Return of Michael Myers 12-inch action figure. This amazing figure is 1/6 scale and has 30 points of articulation, so you can pose your figure any way you'd like. The figure also comes with 2 burnt interchangeable hands, one for holding the included knife, and an open hand to grab victims. The figure is fully clothed in screen-accurate costume with working zipper, and to round the package out, the figure comes in a beautiful collector's box with a flip-back window display. Before we get a closer look at the Halloween 4 Michael Myers from Trick or Treat Studios, I'm sure you guys are probably going to want to know how tall he stands, so I'm going to take the laser tape measure of mine, line it up to the top of his head, and we'll stop it right there. According to the readouts, you're looking at Michael Myers from Trick or Treat standing 12.1 inches in height. We can switch that quickly to centimeters, revealing that Part 4 Michael Myers is 30 centimeters in height. A big thank you to the folks over at Trick or Treat that provided the sample of Halloween 4 Michael Myers that we're having a look at in this review. If you were, like myself, a big fan of the 78 release last year and would like to get more Michael Myers for your collection, good news is both Part 4 and Part 5 are available right now over on their website. You can find out by clicking the links down below in the video description. Now, speaking, of course, of last year's 78 release, which surprised a lot of people, I think a lot of people who generally collect customized figures really may have written off the Trick or Treat release and then find out later on how good the figure was. But nonetheless, we'll move the figure over. We'll bring in the 78 release so you guys can see a comparison side to side. Admittingly, if somebody was to ask me what my favorite figure was for last year, I would say it was the Trick or Treat 78 Michael Myers. This one really hit all the marks perfectly, giving us a perfect movie, realistic looking Michael Myers at an affordable price, which is one thing that really was the selling point, I feel, for this figure line for Trick or Treat. People were jumping on board the idea of getting an affordable Michael Myers and not having to go the route of getting a customized head, coveralls, and all the things that would add up. Now, if you can see the two figures side to side, not much does get changed. The bodies, I feel, are the same underneath the coveralls. The coveralls are also very similar in design as well, though the colors, of course, are drastically different. Yeah, the only thing that really does change considerably is a brand new head sculpt that sits on top the shoulders of the Part 4, which obviously he had to pick up a brand new mask, having burnt the other one that he wore in Halloween 2. Don't worry, we will bring back this 78 in a second so I can show you guys some comparisons back and forth with those. But in the meantime, let's have a look at the accessories that come included with the Part 4 release. Admittingly, there's not a lot. If you collected the 78, for example, you're pretty much getting the same fare, a knife and a swappable hand. As for the knife, you get a nice large bladed knife, done very nicely in this metallic glitter silver. It's all done in plastic, so you will want to be careful that you don't break this. As you can see, it's been sandwiched with the metal, faux metal in the middle, and the black plastic handles on either side. They even went the mile of actually painting in the little rivet points in silver on both sides. It's a nice little touch. Obviously, it won't fit into his hand as it stands right now because his hands are currently relaxed, but like with the 78 release, the Part 4 also comes with a swappable hand. Now you can see this is a gripping hand, ideally suited for the blade. Now I find, like, honestly, the knife handle, it has some real difficulty getting into his hand. And I think it may be the fact that the hole size of his grip is just a little bit bigger than the handle of the knife. I've done it a little bit already, but I think what I may do is take myself a screwdriver that's just slightly bigger than this hole and see if I can dowel a bigger space in the middle, just so that when I decide to get then the handle of the knife back in there, I'm not having to fight it getting in. I'm not going to have to fight it getting back out. So I will do that. I think I will maybe just slightly tweak that, simply just because the fingers can't be removed from the palm because they're all molded in there. You can't pry the fingers away from it. So I think, again, what I may end up doing is just taking a screwdriver and just widening the opening in the hand so it goes all the way through, and then that should fix the issue of having the handle being awfully tight quarters when trying to get that in place. Just quickly showing you, though, the hand sculpt here. Now, we are currently getting Michael Myers from Trick or Treat Studios, but based on looking at this hand, the scarred remains of his burns from part 2, really makes me think that they could be strong contenders for the company that handles and helms A Nightmare on Elm Street 6-scale line. Could you imagine, based on what we're getting here from these part 4 Michael Myers, or all the Michael Myers really for that matter, what they could actually do with a Freddy Krueger based on the scarring of the hands that they've sculpted here. But this makes up, yes, the only admitting accessories that come with this. You get one hand, you get one knife. Down the road, perhaps, you never know, even though we're technically kind of getting low quantities of accessories, it's not to say that Trick or Treat can't simply just release accessories sets for these. I mentioned that, I believe, when we had a look at the 78 Michael Myers as well, that he didn't come with much. Again, a knife and a hand. But maybe expansion or accessory sets could come out, giving us display stands, giving us jack-o'-lanterns, for example, or maybe in the case of even a part 4 Michael Myers, why not maybe include the shotgun that, of course, he impales Kelly with and then strangles Brady with before squishing his head. Maybe include a shotgun, for example, I think would be a fun touch as well. So even though, yes, technically he doesn't come with much in the way of accessories, I'm sure leave it in the good hands of Trick or Treat. Sooner or later, I'm sure we're going to be getting ourselves accessories to add on to the ones that we already get with these figures. That being said, let's get a closer look at Michael Myers. Obviously, that's the reasoning why you guys came to this video. You guys want to see what this guy looks like up close. I will say, he's a good-looking head sculpt. Now, this is obviously George P. Wilbur, who is doing the role of Michael Myers for Part 4. Admittingly, I find Part 4 to be my favorite of the Halloween movies. I just find it paces itself the best. And while admittingly I never really liked this mask growing up, I feel like the mask has grown on me since. It's much more of a smoother expression, much brighter, and of course the noted calling card of Part 4's mask is the fact that he has the dark black eyes. You can't see his eyes at all. One of the other things that they had as accurate to the movie is when you look at the mask, there is the neck extension. Really cool, the fact that they actually added in there. But he does have a nice chalky white surface to him. You can see like there's little imperfections and little kind of like raised bumps on the surface of his mask. There's also areas where it looks like the hair has been stained. You can see there's like an outer parameter of like a brown that's been applied to that. He has, of course, the eyebrows all painted in there as well, and a very slit mouth. Something, again, I didn't like initially, but the more viewings of Part 4, I really like the design of Michael Myers. It's not my favorite. My favorite is probably still H2O or Curse Michael Myers, but I think I'm warming up to the design of Part 4 quite a bit. Now, of course, this one also has the slicked back hair. A clever thing that they did do, just showing you guys the back first, he does have these slits up the back, so of course you can put that onto the actor's head. There's some additional staining that they applied to the bottom end of it as well. But I've also seen this with the soon-to-be looked at Part 4 Michael Myers. They also go in and they paint these little hairs. You see a lot more of it when we get looking at the return of Michael, or the revenge of Michael Myers from Part 5. But on the Part 4's got it as well, these little indications of painted in hairs. Just something that when you're looking at from a distance, it looks like his hair is just a little bit more messier. As for the boiler, let's have a look at his coveralls here. This is a topic of debate, similar to 78's coveralls, I feel. Depending on who you talk to, the coverall color may change. Now, in the movie, the problem with Michael Myers in Part 4 is that half the time you see him in such dark shaded areas, very little light, so it's really hard to kind of pinpoint the color of his boiler. The best place I find to pinpoint what color that coverall is when he first impales the mechanic. You see the mechanic wheeling out, and you can actually really see a good idea of what color his coverall is. Depending on which way the light hits it as well. I find in person, it's got a very grayish kind of blue color, although through the camera I feel like I'm actually getting a little bit more gray color. You can see he does have the flapped pocket on the one side. Now, when it comes to, of course, displaying this Michael Myers, you're probably going to want to favor having the collar up. I might even see if I can pinch that a little bit more closer together, because that was one of the things about the Part 4 mask, is that it was really heavily covered and concealed by the hood. The hood really encompassed a lot of his neck area here. But if you are curious, we can go ahead and just unzip it slightly. This would probably not be the way that you're going to be displaying your Michael Myers, but underneath all of that, similar to the 78, he's got himself a black t-shirt. So if you wanted to, I suppose you could unzip it a little bit further down, but I, for me, like to display this particular Michael Myers design with the collar straight up. Going back, though, to the coloring of the coverall, being if you had asked me years ago what color his boiler was in the movie, I would have told you it was a dark blue or almost even black. Because again, when you see it for most of the movie, you're really only seeing it in shadows. It was kind of jarring when I first saw images of Trick or Treat doing the lighter colored boiler, because I'm thinking, I feel like that's the off color for the coverall. The coverall doesn't look that color. And yet, sure enough, going back and looking in the movie, you can really see it's more screen accurate. Like, it does have this coloring. I do like the fact that the material that they used has a little bit of texturing to it. You can see it's been very nicely tailored, stitched down below at the ends of the sleeves, and stitched around the center of the waist with fully working pockets. If you really wanted to, I suppose you could put something inside Mikey's pockets, but they're there if you really want them to. We get a little bit further down, of course, we got the longer, very wide leg. That's the one thing I really would want with this figure. Nice wide leg. Especially in the movie, it seems half the time when Wilbur's walking around, he's got a very wide, blocky stance to him. I almost even feel like the body that they could have used for this guy could have been slightly bigger, because he's got a bigger build than the Nick Castle build from the part from 78. Spin this around, though, so you guys can see all the back of it here. Again, really nicely tailored the way that they've done these coveralls. Get a little bit further down, and of course we've got his traditional boots. These are all stitched up, and you can see, I think those are eyelets. Somebody told me once what those little loops were, but little eyelets where the laces are fed through are all painted nicely, done in silver. And that's what it looks like on the undersoles of his boots. Now, obviously, this is not Part 5 Michael Myers, but you can roll this up. He doesn't have the thorn marking on his arm yet. I don't even know if the Part 5 Michael Myers has the thorn. We'll have to look at that in its own separate review. But I think the coloring blend between the scarring of his hand and the rest of his natural body, I think is pretty good. They could have probably scarred a little bit of this area here, but I mean, admittingly, if he's going to be wearing the coverall, it may have actually covered most of it. I know I'm not going to start debating how burn victims have scarring, but I do think like the coloring is pretty close. It's obviously going to be a lot more scarred and mangled on the hands than they would be for the rest of the arms. I think it's pretty good in that regard. I'm overall pretty happy with this one. The only thing I would have probably changed, if you had asked me years ago, would be change the color of the boiler. Now, that being said, I would be actually very interested to see this guy get a second release from Trick or Treat. Not necessarily call him screen accurate, but maybe call him like Shadowed Part 4 Michael Myers, where they could maybe give him a slightly darker boiler. Similar to maybe when you see him in the shadows, when he's peeking up from the side of Jamie's bed. Really, when you look at it, it looks half the time like he's wearing a very black costume. And maybe I would be on board the idea if they did a second run of this guy with a slightly darker coverall than what we're seeing right here. Let's have a look at Michael Myers' articulation. So his head is on a ball joint, and because of that, that means you can rotate the head all the way around. You can hinge it down, and you can hinge it up, as well as you can get that trademark head tilt that he does when he impales, I think her name is Kelly, against the wall with the shotgun. You can pull that off as well. Just before we go to the rest of the figure, again, like, look at the head sculpt on that. I do like the fact that they speckled on the paint to give slight imperfections to the surface of the latex mask. There's even like the little marking there on the bridge of his nose, but such a great looking head sculpt. But as for the rest of his body, he has the upper torso ball joint, so you can rotate that all the way around. His arms can move out, but not at what I feel can be a full 90-degree angle bend. When you move them out at a 90-degree angle bend, they sort of tend to droop down at maybe a 50-degree angle bend instead. Now, I'm not going to be planning on doing jumping jack poses with Michael Myers. Just even having his arms out that much is more than enough for me. You can move the arms forward, you can move the arms back. He has a swivel. swivel at more or less his elbow. Let me see if I can actually just move this up so you guys can see. There's a single hinge at play here when it comes to his elbow. He doesn't have the double elbow bend, but for the purpose of displaying him just with the knife in his hand, I don't feel like a double bend elbow is necessary. The hands also do rotate all the way around. You can hinge them back and forth. Then for his legs split out. You can go, of course, forward and back on the legs. They swivel at the very top of the thigh. He has a double hinged knee, unlike his elbow. And then, of course, when it comes to his feet, his boots more than, you can rotate the boot all the way around. And there's a slight, very slight hinge up and down on those boots as well. But again, like specifically for Michael Myers, I'm probably not going to be putting him in any drastic, severe poses where he's going to be running or anything like that. Ideally, for Michael Myers, I'm just going to be having him standing. That's more than enough for me. Then, of course, you can put the knife in his hand, which will be the one thing, again, I'll go back to, and I think I'll see if I can actually widen that opening for his hand just a little bit more. And the reasoning, of course, why I moved this Michael Myers over is, again, to bring in the 78 release, so you guys can see the difference between the two. On board is the best way I would describe the Trick or Treat Studios Halloween Michael Myers line. So far, we've got a 78. We had a look at the 4, and they've just now released the Part 5 Michael Myers. Hopefully the sky's the limit, that they will continue to release more of these, because as a Michael Myers fan myself, I am just absolutely enjoying this line. The fact that we're getting finally Michael Myers in a 6-scale format. While the Part 4 mask may be one of my least favorites, sitting below, I'm sure, Resurrection, Halloween 4: The Return of Michael Myers, however, is my favorite of the franchise. Laurie wasn't in it, no. Jamie was in it, yes. And she played the niece being chased down by Michael Myers, stalked through Part 4, Part 5, and to some lesser extent, Part 6 as well. With, I'm sure, the success that they had with the 78 release, Trick or Treat Studios continues their trend of releasing 6-scale versions of Michael Myers, skipping over to... There's probably a reasoning for that, and instead giving us Part 4, The Return of Michael Myers. He is pretty screen accurate as well, even though the coloring of his boiler may be somewhat of a debate. If you had asked me years ago what color his coverall was, I would have told you it was dark blue or it was black. And to my defense, I would say most of the movie, when you see Michael Myers, he's in shadows. When you see him moving around, half the time he looks like he's wearing a dark blue or he's wearing a black coverall. And in actual fact, he's wearing closer to being like a grayish blue color coverall that you can see best when he first kills the mechanic. That being said, and as screen accurate as this one is, I would be down for a double dipping of this guy. If Trick or Treat can release this guy again, I don't know if you would call him In the Shadows Halloween 4 Michael Myers, or give him some clever name, but re-release this guy with a dark blue or black coverall for all the times that we see him in sort of those low-lit environments. I think I would be down with that idea. Now, when it comes to his accessories, like the 78 release, he doesn't come with much. He comes with a knife and he comes with a swappable hand. The hand is, of course, accommodating the knife. And one thing that I did have some difficulty with, as you saw over the course of this review, was getting the handle of the knife into his hand. Since then, I've actually taken a screwdriver a couple of times and made a few passes and turns inside the grip to widen that hole. And I don't have any issues anymore getting the handle into his hand. But if you are somebody that when you are picking this figure up for yourself, also having some difficulty, don't try to force the handle or the knife in. You may snap it as a result. Instead, just take a screwdriver just slightly bigger than the grip of his hand and just kind of work a hole straight through. Just widen that enough that the handle slips comfortably in his hand without the knife actually falling out. But going back to his accessories though, yes, his accessories are slim, like the 78 release, but I gotta feel like Trick or Treat have something up their sleeve, their coverall sleeve, perhaps. Maybe the idea that while we are only getting some slim accessories with these figure releases, there's definitely an open door there, I feel, for accessory packs. Coming out with sets that come with, again, a jack-o'-lantern, maybe a tombstone and a display stand, and Bob's sheet for 78. Maybe for Part 4 Michael Myers, I don't know, we could give him a pumpkin, a display stand, maybe the shotgun as well. He probably has a lot less at his disposal, but I would love and be open to the idea of Trick or Treat giving us accessory packs for these figures as well. Let me know down below in the comment section what you guys think of this figure, whether you picked it up for yourself, have it physically in hand right now, or based on this review, let me know what you guys think of the Halloween 4 Michael Myers from Trick or Treat Studios. And again, a big thank you to the folks over at Trick or Treat that provided the sample that we had a look at in this review. If you guys are interested and were a big fan of the 78 like I was and would like to get these ones as well, both The Return of Michael Myers from Part 4 and The Revenge of Michael Myers from Part 5 is available right now over on their website. You can find out more by clicking the link down below in the video description. Also, if you're new to the channel and you're enjoying so far all the content you're seeing for 2021, just know before that, in 2020, 2019, 2018, and so on backwards, I've done up to this point about 9,000 videos. Could you believe that? Almost coming up to 9,000 videos. So there's always content that you guys could be checking out. But make sure you're hitting that subscribe button down below. Make sure you're hitting that bell notification. And make sure you're keeping your peepers peeled to this channel Monday to Friday at 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's when new videos will be popping up. And as you probably could figure out, being such a big fan of this line myself, even though we are wrapping up shop and closing up shop on The Return of Michael Myers from Part 4, just know Revenge of Michael Myers from Trick or Treat Studios is just around the corner. He's coming up soon, so stay tuned for that. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.